Hey everyone, Kimio here. And okay, confession time. I used to think enterprise sales just product demos on repeat until someone finally said yes. Well, no surprise, turns out I was adorably wrong, and apparently, so are most founders. So, this episode, Kevin's chatting with Axel Winter today. And this guy's resume reads like a masterclass in corporate tech by CTO at Cisco, global IT strategy at Standard Chartered, built a 450-person startup inside Central Group. But here's what makes him interesting. He's been the guy writing the checks and the guy cashing them. Talk about having both sides of the coin. But pun intended. And what he told Kevin? It's going to mess with everything you think you know about selling to big corporates in this region. Like how most RFPs are basically expensive theater. How the person nodding enthusiastically in your demo might have zero decision making power. And why that "We'll get back to you" email you've been waiting for? Eh, it's not coming. But also, and this is the good part, hear me out, exactly what triggers a corporate to actually start hunting for new solutions? How to survive the internal politics and why your elevator pitch better be bulletproof because you'll get exactly one shot to really make it count. And here's a heads up. Fair warning though, if you're currently stuck in enterprise sales purgatory, this might sting a little. But it'll also probably save you months and months of chasing deals that were never really deals to begin with. Now let's get into it.
All right, welcome back to Sea of Startups, where we're digging into important topics for the startup community out here in Southeast Asia. Today, we've got a fantastic guest that's going to bring us some insights into the mind of a corporate buyer. Axel, great to see you. We had a in-person event not too long ago in Bangkok, and I'm excited to have you again here on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the very nice words for the intro. Appreciate it. Glad to keep in touch across these different topics which we have running.
Fantastic. So obviously you and I know each other for a little bit, but perhaps you could give a little bit of intro to our audience, a little bit on your background, what brought you to Southeast Asia, what your current role is, involvement with technology, etc.
What brought me to Southeast Asia? It's so long ago, I don't even remember. I came here in 1992 and have helped. So I started a company. Actually, I had a startup then. Um, yeah, I came 92, and I think, if I remember, it was about 93-ish that we set up shop. And then help companies to get into the internet. That was before the browser. I mean, just for all the kids. That was before there was any idea of any browser anywhere in the world. And there was an internet, so you could email and so on, right? And so people would use internet email first. There was like FTP, I mean, so downloading apps and so on you could do, and there were text-based tools you could use for exchanging information. It was good in a sense is because the internet, there was like news groups, global news groups in a sense, Usenet. It was, people were super accessible. I mean, really famous people now. You read about them on Wikipedia. You could easily send them an email and would come back, and you want to do something, you can just spin it off, go on a call or something. I mean, that was pretty amazing. browser came, I was working with Netscape here. I mean, as a partner, worked with Netscape, helped again. I think helped in Thailand. I was working getting people on the internet in Myanmar, in Laos, and Indonesia. So there was a fun time, like the first wave. They keep getting bigger. That's the way I got to the region. Then went into consulting later, Accenture it wasn't Accenture then, it was Anderson Consulting for 8 years. Run IT technology for GE Capital in the region after that. And then, what did I do afterwards? Went to Deloitte, back into consulting for a bit over a year. Became CTO at Cisco Systems. And then did that for 2 years-ish, and then went to Standard Chartered Bank and led global IT strategy there and architecture, which is really fun because the bank is such a big tech investor. It's about 16,000 people in tech then, and big data just started. So this was when Hadoop came out and so on, right? Mm. Now we're a little bit beyond Hadoop as a file system, obviously, but the concept like Spark and these things, you still use them today very quite a lot. All of these things started then. I mean, NoSQL databases again, and I remember Hadoop 2 came out, this whole package, and I started using it in the bank, and it was so impressive, the usage, things which data warehouse technology couldn't do. And we made in a whim the decision with the then CIO, Jan Verplan, to say, let's go big. And we moved 1,000 people into that technology. That's really fun from a tech point of view. Major impact to become a data-driven bank, right? Sorry, I get carried away. And then I went to Central Group, created a startup in the group, hired about 450, 460 people, and we basically transformed the group to become an omni-channel player, you would say, or O2O player, maybe more how to say. So basically created an e-commerce business, and doing that for 4 years, sleeping in the office almost. Also a lot of fun. Tough in a way, but this was fun, and brought the company to IPO. The retail part, the retail business unit went IPO just before I left. And yeah, that's a journey. And it was the second largest retail IPO ever worldwide. The nucleus of that, not the only one, the business colleagues, of course, they have a role, but the nucleus of this was this startup in the group, which my team and me created, and then took no prisoner delivery approach. And after that, I opened my own company, joined another mall operator, and mall operator is CMP Watt. My company is Pivot Digital, and we set up a company together to basically the innovation arm of CMP Watt. So it's a bit, again, a startup within the corporate. I also advise some financial service companies, and I advise some retailers and so on here and there. So keep myself busy and work with some startups, and I think that's the basically the entry point to you and me getting to come.
Yep. That's how we linked up.
All right, I'm gonna hit a pause there. And next, how startups keep tripping over the buyer side of the table.
So what are the impetus of why we did the panel session and here now doing this podcast? What is, a lot of startups struggle with really understanding the buyer side of the equation. Oftentimes they're building products, they understand perhaps pain points and value propositions, but they don't always have a perfect understanding of the buyer persona, the behavior, what motivates them, what the process is, etc. And we dug into a lot of that, and I'd love to get into that now. So I'd be curious, because you've spanned the spectrum across a number of roles. You've bought technology, you've built technology, you've helped accelerate businesses by incubating internally, bringing on more. I'm curious from that
I did
standpoint.
both.
Yeah, across. What typically triggers an enterprise to start looking for new software solutions, and then related to that, the build versus buy portion of that logic?
Well, most organizations probably would, especially the bigger corporates, would build less and buy more. I would say. I mean, typically they would have one issue, one specific issue they want fixing, especially lately. Um, they might have a legacy platform, or but then it's only become legacy in the view of the business. Let's forget the IT guys for a second. In the view of the business, becomes legacy if there is something they want to do but they can't do it. Then it's legacy. That's the definition of legacy for business users. Which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. From a tech point of view, of course, we would have a little bit of a different view on that. And the other thing is, you're actually quite happy with your platforms, but you have a feature which you need, which is kind of also woke a bit, talking about AI now, or even Gen AI, chatbots, and I don't know, video generation and all of this. So you could have a very specific feature you are after, which you don't know how to do or you couldn't do today. And in the case of AI, because some of these features are new. And then there could be, let's say, I want to create my own advertisement videos. Yeah, then you need to look for a vendor who can turn this around. And very often they, rather than thinking platform, which I usually like to do, again, IT strategy, architecture background, I think platform, but then many think point solution. And that's why most bigger organizations tend to have kind of, I call it obviously museum of technology. They have a longer list of different solutions which they're trying to integrate. And then these organizations often also are then integrators rather than builders. Again, I'm not further evaluating this is good or bad, but that usually is the trigger. For a build organizations, which there are some, like we would be, of course, then it's a bit more tricky. You could say, hey, maybe there is a specific feature which gives us an uplift of X million. And okay, I can do it myself now, but I'm busy with 10,000 other ideas. Maybe we can close that gap for now, for the time being. But time being usually is a long time because people are busy, and then are they really going back to build it themselves? Not that we would do it more strategically, but again, we have a strategy, right? That kind of is a bit different. Yeah, so that could be. I think both types of organization where the buyers are in the majority, the integrators, they both offer opportunities. The one is it's a direct frontal sales approach, more or less. You just need to know that they're looking for that. So you need to have your network and friends and what have you, or you cold call. And even the builders, you could start collaborating with them and see if you could even customize features into your framework, into your product, right? I mean, in a positive, I mean, if you look at this from a positive perspective, value can be achieved also in that way of saying, well, I would buy it. There's always something I don't really like. And then, yeah, but I can customize it for you, or I can innovate with you together. And if you indeed have good tech people there, or smart people in general, not only tech, but in general, you have a bit of a team which is on edge and a bleeding edge, then this can also be very beneficial for the.
So let me ask you on this. So when you have identified a need and you've decided to go that you don't have the time, or it doesn't make sense for you to build it yourself, when you start the process of looking for a solution, what is the typical evaluation process look like? When does it require triggering RFP? What's the common pathways on discovery? From the understanding of how do you get the discovery of who are the players that could potentially fill your need?
Okay, I mean it's it's a simple question. It can be quite diverse depending on the organization, as you can imagine. Typically, RFPs would kick in if the ticket size is bigger. So we are talking core banking or let's say an ERP solution or something. Then maybe you have a process in there, and also to manage the risk, right? Because nobody really can appreciate all the details and proposals and so on, and then it's probably good to compare. You could have also an RFI. Let's say people really have no clue at all about the landscape and so on. I've done some RFIs in my life. Let's say, hey, we already decided we want new core banking. We already decided it has to be third party, and then but we don't really know who has some of the criteria, operates in Asia or something. Why don't we send an RFI, see first what's going on? And it's a non-committal way for the corporate, right? Because you don't, everybody knows it's not going to end up with anybody buying anything. It's going to end up with you giving me information.
Hence the I.
Yeah, exactly. I see these less often personally. I don't like it at all. It seems like if I want companies to present, then I just call them, right? I mean, it's so much easier than creating this form process. But again, there are organizations also by law or by policies, by regulation, they have to they more adhere to these type of process. I think for the RFP, then it would be committee-based, price-based, price and feature-based, right? I leave government out because in the region, government is a bit of a tricky topic altogether. But for bigger corporations, yeah, an RFP, price and feature. But normally, in many cases, I would say when people do an RFP, they already know who they want to win anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been in any RFP where the outcome was totally open, where nobody had a clue. Oh, we don't know who's going to be. No, we really couldn't tell. Right? So typically, either you have one from the get-go or after the first round of meeting is already clear. Right? Not saying it's a sham process. It's still a fair process. There is still a really small chance that the others make it. But usually it's quite, people are quite solid on what they want and who they want, even if it's not always the best fit.
I mean, before RFPs, they've oftentimes gone through the research and all of that, so that for the most part, they know who fits their needs. But there's a governance component of requiring to go through the proper procedural aspect to validate that it's not in an insider deal or something like that.
Exactly, right? So, and well, I leave the motivation out. It may just be the policy of the organization, and so people don't even think why, they just follow. But then for me, for example, if I was bidding and I know that they already have an opinion, they just need a third horse to run along, I say, well, but then I have to work a lot, and but it can still be good. I mean, it's up to you how busy you are as a company. It still can be good because I also joined somewhere I knew I'm not going to win, but they liked what we shared and quite a lot, and they called us later for another project, basically. If they're big corporates, you saying like Standard Chartered Bank, if I take one, CP Group or San Gabi or these type of, they have so many business units, you never know, right? What's be next there. They invest and they buy and sell and so on, organizations. So there could always be something, or that the guy moves to another company who liked you, right? So I wouldn't totally dismiss this, even if you're sure that you're just there to make sure they have three. Then it still can be good. Just manage your effort level a little bit. I think personally, I'm not a big fan of RFPs because if I know who I want, why don't I just buy them?
And another pause. Next up, the truth about RFPs and how to stand out even when you're the third name on the list.
You know, I had a vendor who actually asked me for an RFP. We had lunch and I said, no, I want this product. You
Yeah,
should
yeah,
be
yeah.
right.
Why add the steps?
Why are you asking me for an RPA impact? I mean, what's going to happen is that you might be too expensive, and
Yeah,
then you could be
does it
say,
make
wow.
sense for the startup to say, "Hey, can we add 2 more months to my sales cycle before you make the purchase?"
Funny. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. Very funny. I couldn't. I mean, it's one of my best sales stories ever.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me ask you on aside from like the larger contract sizes, because obviously that's quite unique. But from an IT strategy, when you start thinking about the lower price point products that are out there, many of them oftentimes are point solutions. You oftentimes do have platforms that are out there that may end up being department specific, vertical specific, etc. How do you, from like the high level standpoint working on down, how do you first from an IT strategy think about solution sprawl where all of a sudden you end up having 50 different SaaS contracts that you're managing? They all serve a purpose, but then from the aspect of we have very specific things that need to be done, so it's understandable that we need all of these sets.
well, I would suppose that first of all, the question is there a specialist in this group, or are they mostly Me Too companies? There are many Me Too's in the sense that there is a successful player, Airship, AppsFlyer, and especially in the MarTech space, and then there are Me Too's. They do what they do. They maybe have one feature more, maybe not even that, but they're cheaper. And so for me, though, the value would be is there is one value point of saying, hey, I want a specialist, someone who I know makes this better over time. For me personally, this would be a good sales pitch, and especially if they can prove it, right? At one of our events, I run in from a CTO from Bell Labs. He used to be Bell Labs, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know.
And I mean, what a fantastic guy. I mean, it's just it's really rare to meet kind of super smart people. I mean, Bell Labs, I mean, for all people who didn't know, please Google it. I mean, it's the foundation of all tech R&D in the world almost, right? I mean, it's just such an amazing organization at the time, at their heyday. So for me, this was like, I mean, and when he started sharing, he came to the office, I had a bit of a sharing session. Wow. I mean, really, really impressive, right? I don't even know what a startup does anymore. But really kind of from a tech perspective, right? Wow, it's pretty impressive, right? So if you have an organization with really strong people and you're becoming the expert in something, for me as a strategist, I would say, wow, 2 thumbs up here. This is where I like to be, right? Of course, I have some commodity solutions, and then it's more about a price point, and I'm really busy, and I don't want to do, let's say, the next HR portal or something like that, or the next G Drive or whatever it is. Obviously, why would I waste my time for that? And I can much easier buy it. Could never reach the price point. So likely, I'm gonna buy something in that space, or there are simply too many, and they have unique, not too unique, but unique capabilities. MarTech space has a lot of tools, and the users, many of the business users like it because it creates productivity. Maybe there's an industry solution like AppsFlyer, for example. Everybody knows AppsFlyer. Everybody likes AppsFlyer. The agencies, when you work with agencies, they use it. They know how to use it, right? And so it's kind of, you're not even going to argue anymore about it, right? You just gotta
It
buy the
becomes
ticket
kind of
for.
standard, industry standard that it's acceptable that it's there.
So why fight it, right? Basically, from a strategy point of view, you just want to make sure that you have a standard way of integrating security and whatever, right? I mean, there's a bit of that stuff, but yeah. So it depends a bit where we pay. Where we playing in, we're the cheapest. We're playing in we're the industry standard. Why bother? Or we're the experts, the real experts. There can be a combination of things, of
Okay.
course.
Relatedly to that, so like how do you view the aspect of, because oftentimes you have categories where there's an incumbent player, you have up and comers. maybe sometimes those up and comers are the Me Too's where they're just competing on price, but sometimes those up and comers are really taking a different angle. How do you view kind of the incumbent sort of nobody's going to get in trouble for hiring the brand name versus the brand new startup that perhaps is actually 10, 20x better and perhaps even more price competitive? How do you see that sort of like balance in making decisions?
Yeah. For me as a buyer, I like the innovator. I would always go for the innovator every single time. And frankly, since I'm in the business, I always went for the innovator by default. That's why my solutions are so much more strategic and longer lasting, frankly speaking. But unfortunately, many of the corporates don't like to do that. They would go for the sure choice, and that is a tricky balance. In regulated industries like insurance and like banking, you might also have a regulator who has an opinion because it has to do with certain reporting and standards and so on. And then they also want to make sure there is no issue. So I leave that out for now because that's a different ballgame. And then please work with the regulator. If that's what it is, then you need to find a way to get a check mark in that geography. But yeah, many go for that. I feel though this is kind of slightly changing a bit. I like to believe, I may not be quite correct. I like to believe that CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, the whole lot is a little bit more on the innovation now. Innovation is woke in a sense. So there is a hype and there's a PR reason why you want to be innovating, right? And then that means is that you typically step away from not all, many of the tried and trusted names because they also have legacy. The big corporate vendors, they also have legacy. They also need to sweat the assets because they have to invest. They're probably their IPO, then they have to make sure how many billions they invest, and they still have to be able to sell it off again, right? And to create profit. So they're also very careful, right? And so I think now, if anything, the problem now anymore is for me as a buyer is that hey, how can you make sure that you come out of the mass because there are too many. And I fear that if you as a startup come in and you have only one client, I mean, you have to be really, 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 really innovative to sell me. And you really need to know how to sell it and how to create a trust foundation with me so that I take the gamble, basically, right? Otherwise, it would be a bit tricky. But if you have a couple of clients, I would say, and some of them could be part of the startup development process. You could actually, if you have the funding, you could have maybe first two clients, make them almost free, or just charge out the cloud cost or whatever the operational cost. You could actually then also have immediately 2-3 anchor clients, and then just piggyback on that. And then for me as a buyer, it would be fine if there's already someone using it. If there is really no one, yeah, that would be a stretch. I would say for a bigger company, that would be a stretch, especially if money is involved. If it's free, maybe not. Tricky question. So in Asia, many of the buyers, they like relationship. They like to be dine and wined in an abstracted way. Although, I mean, there are also policies. So the buyer also has to be a bit following his own policies, what he can accept or what not. But clearly there is a relationship thing going on. Having a line access or WhatsApp or whatever would really help the deal. For me, that would be good if I have access to strong tech people, right? I mean, if I'm learning, if I go to a meeting and I know more about the topic than the people in the room, then that's not going to be good for that startup, frankly speaking. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be good. But if I come out and learn, that would definitely be more convincing for me. Other people, again, they like the typical vendor tour, have events, have a lunch or something. It depends. You need to feel it out. By the way, for myself, when I buy, I really don't care about this, and most salespeople would know. And they are, they are in touch, and so they do know how I buy. For me, it's the feature. I'm after the features, after the learning, or maybe a surprise. And I would, if there is no chance at all that they ever go anywhere with me, I tell the people up front, not to be mean, but just to save them the breath. Hey, focus your time somewhere else, right? I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, and
But
I assume a lot of this kind of also depends upon the contract value as well. The larger it is, the more you may end up needing to kind of establish that relationship, because there may be a service element for maintenance or otherwise when you're onboarding, especially if it's a more complicated, as we were talking about core banking, ERP, some of these more sophisticated systems.
yeah, I mean, for these big ones anyway, their relationship is also very important there, as in a sense that you want to make sure they get the right news. They talk to they talk to some of the other clients, like reference calls and so on, right? Get the latest tech news, maybe understand the roadmap, all of these things, maybe join events. These things are important, especially bigger deals. In smaller deals, I would say if it's a smaller solution, we're talking about a few $100 a month, maybe. Well, I wouldn't say relationship is not important, but again, you have to be realistic what a salesperson can do if it's a small ticket item. I think it depends more on the need. I think the need, and as close you get to what they actually really after. Finding out what the customer is really after. Typically, for these type of tools, it's one feature they really need. They may not need all your features. They like the other features, but they really need the one thing. So you need to understand the buyer from that perspective. It does help, and then follow up. Have a way to follow up so the guy is not too, let's say, because if you don't buy fast, then you're gonna go around town, or you're gonna start talking to others, or having conference calls with other companies.
So one more aspect that I want to take on this is understanding some of the internal dynamics that can adjust some of these decisions. And there's probably really two angles that this may end up taking. One may end up being sort of departmental silos that may end up influencing buying decisions when you have to get maybe a CTO to sign off, or the CFO, where maybe there's different sorts of politics at play. And then I guess the second angle on the internal dynamics is budgetary. Do we have the budget capacity? Where do you sit in regards to the annual budget cycle? Is it part of the plan? Is there space for it? How do these two factors play in? And I guess maybe what would be some advice that you could give coming out of that for younger startups?
Yeah, I would say that first of all, it can be that IT is buying or that the business is buying, or both. All three cases exist. For smaller tools, could be very often the business is buying it on their own or pushing it through. Happens also quite a lot. And then budget typically for smaller items, I would have said, and we could try to quantify that a bit, like a few $100 a month. And on the panel, we had a different view there. I remember Dan and I had a slightly different view. So typically when I do an IT budget, then I put some contingent. I'm not just not going to go exactly to the cent, because you never know.
Yeah, a little bit of buffer space.
There are legitimate reasons why things pop up, right? And you don't want to look bad, and you don't have the money, and you have to go to the CEO, because going above budget is really a bit tricky in many companies. Not in all, but in many companies it's a bit tricky. Or you have to start finding in other cost centers some money and then transfer it over, whatever magic you have to do. Also not nice if me as an executive, I have to go to my peer and say, hey, you have some money left somewhere. No, it wouldn't. And why would I do it for a vendor? Unless there is a burning platform. Burning platform is different. Burning platform is good in a sense that it accelerates purchase processes, right? Like compliance issues or whatever. CEO wants it. these things are burning platforms, so then money is no issue. I think budget can help you a lot because very often people, they cannot spend enough, especially when the organization is in a growth, in an investment phase. Then typically the IT department cannot spend all the planned investment towards end of December, and so that's a good one because then of course it's so much easier for them to they need to spend and they have the money now and not next year, they have it now, so that helps a lot. Sales, but also do that, and the sales should know that all the salespeople would understand that system, and they also all have a when you do a sales plan, you assume you're going to sell more in December. The tricky part is you don't really know, but you assume that there's going to be a fire sale somewhere, so you're going to make yourself ready for December. And I also negotiated deals. I mean, 50% in end of December from a vendor is possible. I mean, if you sit there on New Year's Eve, you negotiate with them on the phone saying, I need it. No, I need that price, or we talk January 1st. Yeah, that's not good for them either. So it's a balance. And then it's a bit like this tariff thing, who's drinking first, who's blinking first type of thing. But this is where you need experience in the sales cycle to make it happen, right? I think if there is no budget though, or if they don't have contingency, or if the buyer doesn't have the seniority, then all of these would be an issue.
Okay, very very interesting. Let's wrap this up here with one final closing that basically has two parts to it. To give some actionable advice to some of the startup founders that might be listening to this. So if you had to dispel one misconception about selling to enterprises that you wish startups knew better, what would that be? And then relatedly, what would be one crucial piece of advice so that they could better sell to enterprises?
Here's the last stretch, the last pause for this one. Excel's one skill that can make or break your enterprise sale.
Misconception, I don't know. I'm thinking. I'm sure there are. Well, maybe that you're going to buy anyway something. That's not always true. And yeah, I don't know. There could be multiple, but I would have said is that startups always assume, or vendors, sellers, actually, I guess they assume that you're going to buy anything anyway. The project can just die midstream. There's a realistic possibility. Even in the RFP phase, suddenly different ideas come up. Hey, why don't we combine some other things and so on? Suddenly the project change, kill the RFP, do a new.
Sure,
right?
The default action could be no action.
People could also just leave. There could be. You may be talking to someone you think makes a decision. Person got fired. Yeah. So that I would say is a bit of a misconception, which I see come across. The advice is probably. The advice would be, what's good advice for people? You're getting me a little bit on a cold foot there now. I would say being good and innovative in your job actually goes for a long way. I would say, and difficult clients can also be good clients, but they are just demanding, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So I think if you have an innovation story to tell, be proud. There's one more. Yeah. If this topic of elevator pitch, you have to 1000% be able to do an elevator pitch in any second you meet. This is absolutely critical. How many salespeople cannot articulate the value, the capability, and the value of their organization? It's really, by the way, a lot of startup founders also cannot do that easily. Elevator pitch is tricky, right? I remember when I worked in GE, there was a training for elevator pitch, most popular training in GE. And it's so important when you meet a CIO, you do a meet and greet, you have about 5 minutes with the guy. or girl, then you need to be able to say why your solution is the best in the market and why that makes sense for them. Don't come with don't come with BS. Sorry to put it straight, because they know they meet vendors every day, right? And they have 10 every day in the inbox. So have the real story. We are cheaper. We are cheaper, and we still have all the features and all competitors, or whatever it is, right? And then that's fine. The best salespeople that can articulate it succinct. That is the say. That is very important, specifically for executives. Give me 100 pages to look at. I start sleeping in page two.
No giant sales material decks or otherwise. Just get to the point.
For senior leaders, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. This was a great conversation, Axel. A lot of useful takeaways from it. Thanks again for joining on.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Right. So if that didn't give you at least three oh crap moments about your current sales strategy, you weren't paying attention. Excel basically just handed us the cheat codes to enterprise buying psychology. From why budget cycles matter more than product features, to how you can literally negotiate 50% discounts if you time it right. And honestly, this relationship thing in Asia, it isn't just cultural fluff. It's really business survival. I'll take it from a fellow Southeast Asian. We know what you're talking about. Thing is, here's what really got me. That bit about the elevator pitch being make or break. Because apparently, if you can't explain your value in the time it takes to write three flaws, you're you're already lost. You know, these buyers aren't sitting around waiting to be educated rev, about your revolutionary technology. They want to know what's broken, how you fix it, and why you're not going to disappear the next year. Look, enterprise sales isn't rocket science, but it's definitely not just about having the best product either. It's more like chess, not checkers. And most of us have been playing the wrong game entirely. So yeah, if this hits an so yeah, if this hit a nerve, good. That probably that probably means you really needed to hear this. Share it with that founder who keeps complaining about enterprise buyers who don't get it. Well, plot twist, maybe the problem isn't them. So follow us for more conversations that will probably make you uncomfortable. Comfortable conversations aren't the ones that really move the needle. In the next one, we are talking about something that's gonna make some of you reach for your tissues, and others reach for their calculators. But I'm not spoiling it yet. Wait till the next one. And I'm Kim Yo. This is the CEO of Startups. And just a quick reminder though, sometimes, the best sales advice hurts the most. Just like the first cut is always the deepest. Oops. And see ya in the next one. And see ya in the next one. Peace out.